It is the 19th of October 2022, Wednesday, midweek, and see us already talking about 3 days into it. Welcome to this very special edition of Good Morning Uganda. My name is Philomena, Mastiko, and this cold morning, I must say, I was having an earlier conversation with a number of my colleagues here, and I was wondering what's happening, how are days rushing by without us noticing? Could it be that there is a lot going on, or we have become too busy, too engaged, and we have ignored what's going on around us, that we have even forgotten how the days are rushing by? Well, that is a question I will leave entirely up to you, but at least also what we'll be discussing this morning has quite a lot to do with you as an individual, but also as a country. What's happening in the economy, what's happening on the social scene, what's happening on the political scene. All that is up for discussion this morning, and when I speak of discussion, obviously it's going to be amongst myself and my handsome and beautiful colleagues over here. Not forgetting, it is a Women Crush Wednesday, so I would really love to know who is the goat for the two gentlemen and the lady this morning. Mollen, Felix, and Robert this morning. Good morning, Robert. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm very fine.
Good morning.
Good morning, the entire team, and of course our viewers. Thank you so much for waking up with us this lovely, cold Wednesday. Well, Mollen, so much is happening, and of course, one of the things we must say, I'm so used to my sisters, and I'm happy she's with us. So, one of the things that interested me yesterday was how integrity and moral decay has eaten up our country. That during the ongoing exams for senior 4U CE exams, in Kawempe, they were able to arrest children involved in examination malpractices. Now they got a senior 3 student to sit for a senior 4 student. But they weren't smart enough, because much as both were in class, the boy was writing names of a girl on the paper. So invigilators were suspicious, and they were wondering, how come you're Robert Kirabo and you're writing Kenyena or Kenyena, but you're a boy? Upon interrogation, they discovered this was one of their best performing senior 3 students who they had brought to sit a senior 4 exam. And that girl had the boy's name on the paper. So they noticed that much as they had registered, this girl was just partially in this room. And they had found a way to fix her, but there was her real name, and the paper was being done by a bright boy in that school. And I asked myself, why would you, for example, cheat senior 4 exams? What is so much that if you didn't read, and I'm just like, but for sure, we have a society which is getting rotten day by day, and something has to be done.
And I mean, I would be asking, if you feel this boy is actually too smart and too intelligent, why not let him actually sit for the senior 4 class by himself, as opposed to doing what they were doing? You would think that even after the very serious warnings that were passed by UNEB, the schools would heed to them and just do what they're supposed to do. But here again, look at us talking about cheating happening. And I mean, this is just day 2. The question is, what will be happening for the rest of the other days when we still have these examinations going on? Good morning, Mollen.
Yes, good morning to you, and I want to say good morning to your family out there. Well, if you ask me about this whole UNEB thing, there are a lot of things that are happening. I also did see a school where they forced female students to trim their hair. I don't know whether that is guideline from Ministry of Education, but I feel like it was unfair for me, because these students, yes, most of them were actually coming from outside. They weren't studying during the time the school had those guidelines, although they were supposed to sit examination with the school. So why at last minute you're forcing these female students to trim their hair amidst them preparing for exams? That's you setting them up for, failure, because at that point you're disappointing them,
and distracting them, yes.
Psychological torture.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I saw that. I'm like, oh my God, now if these students perform poorly, now they know who to blame, because they even reached the extent of wanting to break out of the school. just a few minutes before examination. So the school should have handled it better. Maybe let them sit for that exam. Then after the exam, at least have the barbers come to school and trim their hair. But to me, it was just quite unfair. And we're seeing a lot of things happening. What Robert has just talked about. If you know there is a bright student who can sit for the examination and pass, why is the school not having such students actually be performing other than allowing such misconduct to happen? But also, I think cheating had reduced. Issues of cheating examination had taken long without hearing those. But now they are resurfacing, and it's just unfortunate. I mean, we also have to consider that we are having examinations post-COVID. A lot of students were not studying, in due course due to school fees, due to all this COVID thing. Now they came back, they're just trying to prepare. And I know a lot of them were not ready, but that is not something you can blame on your school, on the school. Eventually, it has to be you individually paying for that price if you are not prepared well for examination. But we still know that there are those who prepare and want to pass, and we want to wish you good luck. And for those that are still preparing for more examination, please make sure you've done your best so that no one blames you for any result other than, having good qualifications. That you'll have to take a credit for yourself. So we wish you good luck out there.
Well, when you're talking about the students who are forced to cut their hair, I remembered some of the comments that were passed on by a number of people saying that maybe some of these teachers in the schools are quite bitter. And it kind of, it made some sense. But also you'd find that certain schools maybe do have certain standards and, for general smartness. But I think it would be ideal that you inform these students, especially if they have not been your everyday students and they're going to come and sit for their final
I think where that problem comes is we have schools that don't have UNEB centers.
Yes.
So what they do, they register their candidates with a school that has a UNEB center. Now it's only during exams that these children are transported to that school where they're going to be having their exams where there's a UNEB center.
But also, you see, I have a very big problem with that because as an education institution, why don't you have a UNEB center? If you don't have the UNEB center, then maybe just don't start operation. I don't know, that's how I feel. How do you feel about that? Good morning, Felix. I did see you fold your face when Mollen was talking about the students whose hair was being forced to be cut. I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel nothing.
No, you're lying. You cannot feel nothing. Felix.
It's not even a big deal. Hair grows. I mean, just chop it. You see, this is for me the challenge I have with students. And these whole things, it's just now, imagine she even said that they wanted to break out of school. Yet they have exams ahead of themselves because you're asked to cut hair. Like where does the
hair got to do with the examinations? We have seen schools where students have hair and they're excelling. So what has the hair got to do with the examinations?
They should have gone to those ones. It's as simple as that. But the fact that they came to this one,
timing. Yes, you want them to trim their hair. We understand that, but wait until they're done with exams. Because first of all,
then what would be the use?
You didn't set the guidelines for them. Yeah, because you're frustrating them before exams. The time that
and also if you feel
how does hair frustrate someone?
Really try
because you are trying to trim,
oh my
trim
God,
it there,
you cannot
then
speak
you should
from
have
that.
seen the saga.
Felix, these girls are used to having this hair.
Probably it's because I'm bald.
And
anyway,
when we look at the Bible, the glory of a woman, is her. Your Bible scholar.
Absolutely.
Yes, the glory of a woman is her hair. So when these young girls are used to having this hair, the school where they're coming from, just waking up, they're going on an examination, you trim this hair, it has a psychological torture because they look at them with now heads like mine. They have been
their psychology has a problem.
So it disorganizes them, also when they are going for an exam.
I think Felix has a problem.
Yeah.
In regards to what?
We can only maybe anyway. We can look at it from two perspectives. If the school gave them prior warning,
of course it must have done that.
Well, it's a bit questionable, but yes, if the school gave them prior warning that maybe we don't allow hair and they insisted, maybe they do have a valid reason. But if there was no warning that was passed, I don't really think it makes sense. Matter of fact, we really hold them accountable for it. So Felix, for you to stand here and you tell us that there is no psychological issue there.
One thing I know.
For a person who really understands psychological issues,
and my definition,
you're going to have a cup of coffee.
I will have, definitely. That's a matter of fact.
Yes.
For me, I know one thing, and I tell my students, once you are a student, that is your full-time job. To adhere to what students do, depending on whatever institutions want. It's as simple as that. If you want to be a non-student, behave like whatever an adult or what in a student setup. That's the difference.
Isn't that a bit dictatorial?
Well, again, you're a student, so whatever is for the school, you must ride with it. It's as simple as that.
Well,
when you're out of here, you can even grow hair in all parts of your body. But as long as you're here, this is what you want. Simple.
I absolutely disagree with you. I don't think it is right.
These were S4s, right?
Anyway, he's a
students.
teacher, and sometimes teachers can get it wrong, especially when it comes to student affairs.
Yeah.
So
Of course, the self-righteousness is always there, but I mean...
Have you heard what Mollen has said?
You are
Sometimes
a teacher.
teachers get it wrong.
When it comes to student affairs, for you, you always look at your side as
That's
teachers,
true.
and you don't consider the students.
So
At
they
that
go
point,
back
it
to-
was
In most
about
cases,
They
them.
go back to their days.
It was about them because
This student is so bold. How this
You see, Felix, because guess what? The moment these students perform to an expectation that the school wants, it's the school that wins. So at that point, you actually you don't even know what you're doing because you're frustrating the same students that are supposed to raise your standards in terms of academics. Because you're frustrating them when they perform poorly. When they perform poorly,
best performing schools that
You're
their
going to be
girls go to
accountable.
Gayaza, then I show that path they have.
It's unfortunate these ones
These
are
girls
not
are
taken to
performing very
Gayaza.
well, and we can list a number of schools where hair is not an hindrance to performance.
Once you're in school, you're a student. That's your full-time
Felix,
job, period.
those were your days.
Nothing
Times
else.
have changed.
Anyway, here or not, at the end of the day, we just really want students to perform, but also under favorable conditions, and they should be really doing quite well when it comes to the psychological aspect. Well, a lot is happening, stories, and I did come across a story where they're showing, reports are showing from the United Nations that young girls, as we speak right now, are contracting HIV, AIDS, stroke AIDS, way more than their male counterparts. And the age they were talking about here, the age in question is between 18 to 24. And they were saying that, every minute that goes by, at least 2 girls are contracting HIV. And I am just questioning, oh my goodness, what are we doing? Are we actually, in fact, I believe that we are part of the contributing factors.
How do girls contract HIV and men? Like, I don't know, is it like they are taking pills of HIV? Like, do they, I don't know.
Well,
has the transmission of
happens?
HIV changed?
You know how it happens?
tell
One
me.
infected man
Can affect number
can
of
infect
girls.
so many women. Reason being is most of these girls are looking for luxurious things and they can't afford at that particular time. That's why you have the iPhone 14s, 13s.
I think
this,
that's a bit
that.
of a
So
shadow
one
reason. There are very
man
many
that has
reasons
the money.
that could
Yes,
account
poverty,
to that.
desire.
You cannot hold
It's
that as the
desirable.
biggest reason as to
That's the
why girls are
biggest.
contracting HIV.
No, let's call a spade
The
a
gentleman
spade.
this morning, I'm not
Let's
getting
call a
it.
spade a spade. Reasons why they are getting this is
Maybe we
because
should give you
they
that
desire
report
so
and
much.
you read it and give you
Yes,
the
and I'll
details
give
and
you
you'll see the
reasons why.
reasons. It's
I'll
not
give you the
necessarily
reasons why.
because these girls are looking for iPhones and all that. Matter of fact, you should actually educate yourself, Robert, and get into that report. And you know what I'm talking about.
It's
But
about
that
poverty
is a reason
and
that is
desire
not-
for what you can't afford. That is it. And the smoothest way to get it is men that have. That's why you find that many young girls are contracting compared to the young boys. The young boys are out there, they now have to hustle. If I'm to get someone, I have to work out. The young girls know that someone is going to get me and give me these free things, but have a cost at the end of the day.
I think that could have an iota of truth, but not conclusive in its own sense, because I know for a fact that there are many people who are victims of probably rape, defilement, but also one of the other challenges as Africa is the cultural challenge, which probably also disguises in what Robert is saying, that women have been put in a position to be more vulnerable than men. You see countries where they marry off these young men who have had like 7 wives, then they bring also this young girl, you know. So I think there's a challenge of poverty, what Robert alludes to in relation to and how people react to it. But also culture is one of the things that must be investigated in relation to the growth of likes of HIV, in my opinion.
Well, the question is, are you actually contributing to these statistics as a member of society? Well, we need to look into ourselves once again. Local stories, international stories happening, and right now we're going to be going through some of the stories right here at home.
And we'll begin with the 5 that were arrested at Parliament yesterday. While these parliamentary police arrested them, and they identified themselves as coffee nursery bed operators who supplied to government. The arrested suspects were peacefully demonstrating against government's delay to pay them after they were contracted to supply coffee seedlings in Gomba district. Meanwhile, the opposition at Parliament have reacted to President Museveni's comment on the Venk coffee deal. The arrested include Elijah Sekaja and Ronald Serunjoji. These and 3 others had stormed Parliament carrying placards demonstrating against government's delay to pay them after they were contracted and supplied seedlings in Gomba. Sekaja and colleagues under their umbrella body, Nursery Bed Operators Gomba, claim they demand more than R1 billion from government.
Now, the Ministry of Health says they will not close schools in Mubende district due to Ebola outbreak. The Minister for Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Cheng, was leading members of the Strategic Committee of the Ministry of Health and Development, partners, UNICEF, World Health Organization, and Center for Disease Control to Mubende and Kasada district to assess the Ebola response. And the district of Mubende and Kasanda are under lockdown announced by the President to contain the spread of the Ebola virus.
And moving on, Fort Portal Referral Hospital isolation ward is currently free without any Ebola patient after discharging the 5 who were from Mubende Hospital. The hospital is monitoring one suspect case of a 56-year-old who was admitted. Health workers at Fort Portal Referral Hospital are now in relaxed mood after all the Ebola patients were transferred to Entebbe Hospital, where they are and were later discharged. Fort Portal Referral Hospital Administrator Michael Odru said after months of treating Ebola patients from Mubende, Fort Portal Referral Hospital said that the treatment unit is finally free from any Ebola patient.
Now, a symposium on HIV is to be held in Kampala November 8th to 10th, and the conference aims at engaging the affected and infected experts on the current HIV/AIDS status in the country. Uganda AIDS Commission announced the symposium at a press briefing held at Uganda Media Center in Kampala.
Now, looking at some of the international stories, starting off with the United Kingdom, which has summoned a top Chinese diplomat over violence at a Hong Kong pro-democracy protest outside the Chinese consulate in Manchester, where a man appeared to be pulled into the consulate grounds and assaulted. British police are investigating the incident, which took place during a demonstration against Chinese President Xi Jinping. Officers from Greater Manchester Police entered the consulate grounds to rescue a man who they said was dragged inside and assaulted by several men. China's ambassador to the UK is not currently in the country, so Charge d'Affaires Yang Xieguang was summoned to the Foreign Ministry to explain the incident. He met a Foreign Office official who told him all diplomats and consular staff must respect UK laws and regulations. U.S. President Joe Biden has called on Americans concerned with reproductive rights to vote for Democrats in midterm elections, promising to push a bill in Congress that would protect the right to abortion nationwide if his party wins next month. Biden said in a speech on Tuesday that he would sign legislation early next year codifying Roe v. Wade, the landmark Supreme Court ruling that had ensured a constitutional right to abortion if Democrats retain control of the House of Representatives and expand their majority in the Senate. The Conservative majority on the top court in the United States overturned Roe in June, igniting outrage among abortion rights advocates and Democratic lawmakers. Democrats have made abortion a key election issue, which so far has proved effective. Democratic candidates who focused on abortion in their campaigns have won key early races.
Well, Somalia faces the worst famine in half a century, UN warns. Now, Somalia faces famine on a scale last seen half a century ago. The United Nations has said as it sets a new target of more than $2 billion in funding needs. Things are bad and every sign indicates that they are going to get worse. James Elder, the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF spokesperson, told reporters on Tuesday via video link from the drought-stricken Horn of Africa nation. In August, 44,000 children were admitted to health establishments with severe acute malnutrition, a condition that means a child is up to 11 times likelier to die from diarrhea and measles than a well-fed counterpart, Elder said. Somalia has suffered 4 successive failures in its rainy season since the end of 2020, and there are fears that the 5th failure is now underway. In more news, climate change puts 1 billion children at extreme high risk. Now, at extremely high risk due to climate change, Human Rights Group warned on Wednesday, adding that the youth living standards failed to improve in the last decade. Kids' Rights Index, based on figures supplied by the UN agencies, also said more than 1/3 of the world's children, some 820 million, were currently exposed to heat waves. Water scarcity affected 920 million children worldwide, while diseases such as malaria and dengue affected some 600 million children, or in every 4 Dutch NGO Kids' Rights said. Now, the Kids' Rights Index is the first and only ranking that measures how children's rights are respected annually, ranking Iceland, Sweden, Finland as the best for children's rights and Sierra Leone, Afghanistan and Chad as the worst out of the 185 countries.
Well, you're still watching Good Morning Uganda, and after going through some of these stories, maybe for the poll question this morning, where we would want to hear from you, what can be done to reduce the increasing numbers of mental illnesses in Uganda? What provisions can we put in place? How do we get to put a cap on all these numbers that are growing exponentially when it comes to the mental illnesses in Uganda? Already it is a global problem. How do we try to control it when it comes to us as a country? Well, do let us know what you think all different parties can play and all the responsible stakeholders when it comes to mental illnesses in the country. We'll be sharing what you think with the rest of the viewers of Good Morning Uganda. But also for now, speaking of your health, obviously we always do preach the gospel, Robert.
And I cannot get tired of reminding you that we need you healthy, and one of the ways of keeping healthy is having a strong immunity. How do you do this? Here are products from Hallelujah Reflexology. What these do is they boost your immune system. At just 1,500, you get yourself Hallelujah Ginger Tea, Hallelujah Tamarind Drink, and Hallelujah Banana Fruit Juice, which I'm holding here. So go to any shop, any supermarket, and ask for either Hallelujah Ginger Tea, Tamarind, or Banana Fruit Juice. I guarantee you these will greatly boost your immune system, and your visits to doctors will reduce, and that will mean you'll save a lot. Well, I'll be waiting for my lunch.
Women Crush Wednesday, you know what that means here on Good Morning Uganda. We'll be giving you one of those songs to get your day started and maybe try to pour some positive vibes and energies as you go by the day. When we get back, we'll be having quite a discussion in Good Morning Uganda News Reel. Make sure you get onto our socials on Twitter. The hashtag is UBCGMU, and let us know what you think about our poll question. We'll be back shortly. It is the 19th of October 2022, Wednesday, midweek, and see us already talking about 3 days into it. Welcome to this very special edition of Good Morning Uganda. My name is Philomena, Mastiko, and this cold morning, I must say, I was having an earlier conversation with a number of my colleagues here, and I was wondering what's happening, how are days rushing by without us noticing? Could it be that there is a lot going on, or we have become too busy, too engaged, and we have ignored what's going on around us, that we have even forgotten how the days are rushing by? Well, that is a question I will leave entirely up to you, but at least also what we'll be discussing this morning has quite a lot to do with you as an individual, but also as a country. What's happening in the economy, what's happening on the social scene, what's happening on the political scene. All that is up for discussion this morning, and when I speak of discussion, obviously it's going to be among us, myself and my handsome and beautiful colleagues over here. Not forgetting it is a Women Crush Wednesday, so I would really love to know who is the goat for the two gentlemen and the lady this morning. Mollen, Felix and Robert this morning. Good morning, Robert. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm very fine.
Good morning.
Good morning, the entire team, and of course our viewers. Thank you so much for waking up with us this lovely cold Wednesday. Well, Mollen, so much is happening, and of course, one of the things we must say, I'm so used to my sisters, and I'm happy she's with us. So, one of the things that interested me yesterday was how integrity and moral decades has eaten up our country. That during the ongoing exams for senior 4U CE exams, in Kawempe, they were able to arrest children involved in examination malpractices. Now they got a senior 3 student to sit for a senior 4 student. But they weren't smart enough, because much as both were in class, the boy was writing names of a girl on the paper. So invigilators were suspicious, and they were wondering, how come you're Robert Kirabo and you're writing Kenyena or Kenyena, but you're a boy? Upon interrogation, they discovered this was one of their best performing senior 3 students who they had brought to sit a senior 4 exam. And the girl had the boy's name on the paper. So they noticed that much as they had registered, this girl was just partially in this room. And they had found out who fixed her, but there was her real name, and the paper was being done by a bright boy in that school. And I asked myself, why would you, for example, cheat senior 4 exams? What is so much that if you didn't read, or what? And I'm just like, but for sure, we have a society which is getting rotten day by day, and something has to be done.
And I mean, I would be asking, if you feel this boy is actually too smart and too intelligent, why not let him actually sit for the senior 4 class by himself, as opposed to doing what they were doing? You would think that even after the very serious warnings that were passed by UNEB, the schools would heed to them and just do what they're supposed to do. But here again, look at us talking about cheating happening. And I mean, this is just day 2. The question,
what are we federating? Whether what's from another country can be, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
Every Wednesday at 10 p.m.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda, we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
The Parish Development Model is a development approach conceived under the Third Development Plan, NDP3, and prescribed by the NRM Manifesto 2021-2026 with a goal of moving 3.5 million households from the subsistence to a monetized economy. With a fund size of 1.5 trillion Ugandan shillings, the Parish Development Model aims to deepen the decentralization process, improve household incomes, enable inclusive, sustainable, balanced and equitable socio-economic transformation. Under the initiative, each parish will get 17 million shillings in the current financial year to start the implementation of the program, and according to the plan, the parishes will each receive 100 million shillings with effect from the next financial year. The launch of the Parish Development Model operationalized parish savings and credit cooperative societies or SACCOs through which people will be able to obtain financing for development. Under the Parish Development Model, the parish is going to be the vehicle for data gathering, area-based enterprise selection and development, cooperatives and financial services development, community mobilization, and mindset change.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. It's 2 minutes after the hour of 7 a.m. You're watching us on UBC TV, and you can always decide to come and pay us a visit anytime you can spare a minute and we talk. My name is Philomena Mastiko. Today is Wednesday, 19th of October 2022, and I am joined by Felix Nkunda and Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono this morning as we talk about mental health. Now, this one is a month, October is a full month actually, of mental health awareness, aside from other awareness campaigns that are going on. It's very critical for any individual to make sure that your mental health is stable, to make sure that you are doing well. Much as you could be doing well physically, also your mental stability is very key when it comes to you and running your entire life. We know that your mental health also quite plays a crucial role in how you handle life's challenges, how you handle stress management, how you respond to it, and to mention but a few. Now, getting back to a poll question where we also do ask you the same question in relation to the topic of a discussion, we would love to hear from you. If maybe we could come up together and brainstorm some of the things that we can do as society members, as the government and any other party that is very key in this fight. What can we do to make sure that we cut down on the numbers of mental illnesses in Uganda? How can we reduce that number? If we could do it as fast as it not so long ago, we did see statistics coming in from the Ministry of Health talking about how about maybe 14 million Ugandans are suffers with mental illnesses, and mental illnesses come in different formats, and again they project in different ways. Now 14 million, this was about before COVID-19. These statistics, I could say, were used from 2019. Look at us where we are. COVID-19 came in. We have been faced with very many other challenges that could really kind of kick us off this route and again make the numbers grow. We had COVID-19, we are having Ebola, there are other stress factors around us. So I would really want to assume that the numbers are even way higher than that. But also the question is, like I always want to ask, do you think you're part of the problem? Do you think you're one of the drivers of these statistics? How and what what can you do to make sure that you don't be part of the problem, but be part of the solution? Well, that discussion is going to be up this morning amongst the three of us. And I really want to believe that each one of us has had quite something that has really driven you a bit crazy, and you feel like, how am I handling this mentally? Even if you really come here or before the screen and you're looking okay, but at the back of your mind, we cannot tell what's going through. And I mean, there are very many factors that could drive you to that point. Maybe just to hear from you, Robert, I don't know, if you could go through mental health and tell us what exactly you understand by mental health, and if you believe that Ugandans actually understand what mental health is. I mean, you've interacted with a few people, and you could share with us some of the things you probably heard from them.
First, when that research came out indicating that from the Ministry of Health that 14 million Ugandans are grappling with one form of mental disorder. To many people it was scary. They say this can't be true, but the truth of the matter is mental health has, I would call, different levels. That's why the English once say that all people are mad, but the levels of madness differ. Yeah. So there is that we call the extreme, where people classify that person that because of the actions they are doing, maybe they have become violent, maybe they can't connect properly, and they are taken to a referral hospital, they are taken to a health facility. But there is also that time, it could be someone is in overstressed, where it is a disorder. So mental health is where someone's, in a layman's understanding, someone's understanding or the brain is not functioning under normal circumstances how it should be functioning.
Yes.
And the challenge in third world countries is we only visit doctors or health experts when we are real sick. We don't go for checkups, not because maybe we don't want, but it has a cost to pay. Many people go to the hospitals when they are real sick. That's why many people, mental health is treatable, mental disorders are treatable. But sometimes people go to health facilities when it is too late. They began and people are not doubting what they are doing. They keep on resisting. Finally, by the time you take a person, they're even tied on ropes to go and seek medical attention. But this person has been deteriorating over and over. Now, when we look at this month, October, as a way of creating awareness, that is when yesterday, Uganda, we had our national celebrations. Yes. One of the things that comes to our minds, like you rightly say, that the numbers are increasing. Day by day, many people, many young children, more so now the youth, if you go to some of these rehabilitation centers, because now we have private and government, our national referral is Butabika, you'll find that there are so many young lads that are in these centers. And one of the things that will come to your mind is why this increase. Now, I was looking at statistics also that worried me this morning, where Uganda's population is 56% of it are young people, are children. And these researchers say that 1 out of every 5 children has a mental disorder. Every 5 children you see, 1 has a mental disorder. And it was shocking when I was listening to experts speaking about these children, why they're having this mental disorder. And one of them was school. Today, one of the dailies has carried a heading indicating that boarding schools are fueling mental illness in this country. So one of the experts that was speaking at the national celebration said that because of the stress schools are putting on children, they are packaging them like nothing, assignments after assignments, no resting, they're under duress, they're under pressure. That is why now we are seeing ages from 15, 18, school going, that are now mentally sick, having problems. That's why even we are seeing some suicide being committed. You would wonder, why would a child in school being looked after, cared for, commit suicide? So that is one of the areas I said, hey, we must also look at that. How is our education system now being one of the problems that are causing mental illness in this country? Then also, when you look at issues that are coming up like drug abuse, you know, in our country today, when you talk about drugs, they're easily accessible. Easily accessible. Or what, just knowing any go to move on the streets, you have it. But at the end of the day, how you consume it, at the end of the day, this is going to cause a problem. If you go to schools, I remember recently, police intercepted some cookies. Were they cookies, something packed? And these were very dangerous. But they were being sold in schools. Young children are taking dangerous substances. And at the end of the day, we are having issues of mental health. You look at the economic times. You've talked about COVID. You've talked about Ebola. Yes. Talk about the economy. Fathers who lost jobs in COVID. Some are working today, but the cost of living is too expensive. And continuous stress, continuous pressure that some people may not be able to handle this. So a man will look at a family, he can't educate his children, they are there, he can't pay rent, he doesn't know when they are pushing him out of the house. All this combination of factors, given the fact that we don't even have readily available counselors where people can go and speak to, all these are factors. At the end of the day, you're going to see more of these mental cases happening. And finally, not forgetting, even torture. Accidents and torture. Many people who have gone through these who were arrested, some of the way they were handled, some mob justice, in the recovery process, many develop. And that is one area you must look at, torture and accidents. Many develop. That's why they tell people when they are riding, have a helmet on. You're sitting on a border, have a helmet on. This head, when it hits on some surface, it could be recovery, but when there's something that you've damaged.
Now, talking about mental health amongst children and adolescents, usually when we are having discussions, we really don't get to pay a lot of attention to the children. I will tell you that the biggest population here in Uganda believes that mental health is mainly for the adults. Why? Because they believe they're the ones who are going through a lot, and somehow we turn the blind eye to the children. Worldwide, statistics show that 1 out of 5 children and adolescents are, they face mental health disorders, and there is also limited services that could help these children. Now, Felix, seeing that we have seen the numbers, we are appreciating the fact that the numbers are really growing, especially amongst the children. The thing is, where would we say the issue is really coming in? Could we say that there is a laxity in the systems, especially now that Robert talked about schools being one of the reasons that have been highlighted to be causing stress amongst children? I'm pretty sure you have been at a point where you've complained, or you've seen parents complain about kids that are being picked at about, is it 5 a.m. and all that. And I've had parents complain saying our children are not normal children. Okay, yes, because they come worried, and even when they get back from school, there is a lot of homework, there is a lot to do, and they believe this is actually doing a number on them psychologically. Now, when you look at all these incidents, could we say there is a bit of laxity, or maybe we are not paying attention to all the things that we do, believing that we're helping our children, yet we could actually be damaging them?
I like the fact that you took me to the angle of children.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about it, but it's interesting now that you did bring it to light. And when you are phrasing the question, and what comes into my mind right now is how, as a country, we have our priorities misplaced, right? We are putting pressure in the wrong places. We are having high expectations from a place where we have less invested. Some of the people in this country pride in cattle being herdsmen. And I think some of them who know, that it is foolhardy or idiocy to talk about milking a cow. If you didn't, feed it. You can't say that you want to go and... Now, our expectations are so high, and that's the pressure you see. Between you and me, Philo, Robert, and everyone who's watching Good Morning Uganda, I just want to give me a reason, and the good thing WhatsApp is on. I think our poll question is related to what we are looking at. Just any parent can tell us, why would a top class child, this is a baby of about 4 years or 5 years, be picked at 5 a.m.
Middle class, top class.
I don't know. Just give me a reason.
And comes back with a lot of homework, Angela. Sure.
Even before we go to the home, but at 5. For some of us who have taken trouble to study about child behavior, a bit of raising children, because there's a lot of information. A child has to sleep at least, if everything, things don't cost, at least 8 hours, undisturbed. Because their brains are still growing. Now, this continuous interruption of brain growth, health. Some of the things that help mentality to grow is 1, feeding, socialization or social time, also communication. Remember that for some of us who have kids, there's this thing we normally say, monkey see, monkey do. The things we say vis-a-vis the things we do. All these things help a child's. Now, we are discussing mental health at a very later stage. But the beginning of mental illnesses is, and that's why I said I'm so fascinated by the fact that Philo brought it from that angle of children. And I hadn't really even thought about it but now that as I said it, like, we are not doing the right things to help our children's minds or brains grow. Rather, we are doing everything to aid mental illnesses. Today, you waking up a child at 5, probably if they're being picked at 5, then they're waking up at 4 or 4 something. You wake them up, they take them, blah, blah, blah. They come back home. But remember, I have talked about the things that may help someone's brain to be normal. 1 is already out in terms of resting. They don't rest well. The brain doesn't rest well. Second, the brain during day is pumped a lot of useless things. Totally useless. That should have a time. These kids, you can't make a kid of 5 years be at school from 6 to 5. Crocodile. Jesus. Now, and then, after that, the kid comes back home to video game. Which video games? Ben 10. Ben 10 has a sword. Then there's this game of shooting. All the games they're playing is blood. Trauma. You understand? Then you create it. Now after that, she or he is going to go to sleep. Most recent, they even have cartoons of sexual cartoons. Kissing, the whole cartoon is about kissing, mommy, daddy, kissing in the bed, and then the kid goes to sleep. Tomorrow, the same pattern. Now, the kid does that. Exactly. Now, the kid is dreaming about swords, killing, and kissing. Swords, killing, and kissing. That is a year plan for a child. How do you miss mental health for such a child? Honestly, by the time they go into P3, they're either supermen or superwomen in sexual affairs or violence. You get the point.
And in addition to that,
and these things,
Felix, in addition to that, even the parents are absent because they are looking for money. The maid.
That's why I talked about socialization. And I don't want. Sometimes I don't want to use our examples. Sometimes it sounds unfair to people. It may look like we are the best. I don't think that's it. But we relate to something we saw. I can give you a small example about myself and where I grew. in Ruraga here with my beautiful grandmother, you wake up in the morning at about 6, you wash the plates, do a bit. Everyone had something to do, depending on the timetable. At about 7:30, we walk to school. You had to walk, but you walk in a group of about 12 to 15 people. You're jazzing, hey, wait, you're doing that, you know, like socializing. Now, you're in class after you study. The only thing you think about, playing some soccer with your friends at break. At lunch, there was, and I'm not saying that we should do what things were, because the world changed. But what I'm trying to bring, why I brought the example of children, because Philo asked me, I'm trying to put the evidence that there's a big gap between parenting lately and what is actually happening. Yet there's a big relationship between mental health and the style of parenting. These things...
We've had even stories where, or we've had the experts say that sometimes the parents are the problem.
Not sometimes.
Most of the time.
All the times. I mean, how your child turns out is not anyone's blame. Don't even disturb people. That is your child. Okay? Even if they go to, that is your child. Parents want credit for a good child, and they don't want to be attached to when the child has an issue. The other thing is this. Now, there's something called bullying. I have seen deaths because of trauma.
Yes.
You saw a case in Kenya, if you remember. I think this year, it was this year. And we have had such cases in Uganda. For some of us in this sector, we see it every day. But when you interest yourself to interact with these kids who bully others, these very stubborn and naughty children, you realize it comes from
home.
Either, I'm sorry to say this, but you, what is wrong with you? The kid can walk out of class.
Yes.
But where does it start? Is that child okay? Because the qualities of any other person in society, one of them, of the most important thing that disproves someone's not being mentally challenged is what you call emotional intelligence. Because that's the reverse of that is an evidence of mental challenge. How do you handle your emotions? You get the point, because one of the challenges or the characteristics of mental health is violence. Violence can come off in many ways. Bullying is one of the biggest causes of mental illnesses. The Philos here, the Kirabos, will train their kids to be humble, to be submissive, to processes, to procedures. But there's this other parent, the one I've been talking about, who doesn't care what the child watches, what time. Between you and me, why would a child sleep past 9 o'clock?
They're watching wrestling.
How does a child watch wrestling, honestly?
And
do you know what? They watch it with as a family.
Yes.
Undertaker. Even the kids know the moves. Stone Cold did like this. And they will do the same thing to the...
Even clothes.
Then he got the head and put it here. Then... Why is a child watching wrestling?
And we're sharing that in social media. We have seen TikTok videos where children or parents are gladly sharing the videos of their children imitating. Yes.
Now, those are the things that you see. Mental health. We normally discuss the evidence that we see, but the causes are those small things we never want to pay attention to. Trust me, mental health is cumulative.
Very, very true.
It's
a process.
Yes. It starts by missing one thing, omitting to do something, and doing something. Okay? You omit to chastise a child when you have to, and that becomes their habit.
Actually,
now, that will come off as...
Of late you hear many that say to Liverpool, you know, because the brain is tired. It has been exhausted. It has had extreme packaging when this child is young. It has had a lot of societal problems when growing up. Now they reach a point and they are tired. Indeed, the brain is tired.
And when you look at what is happening right now, most of the people, the young adults, if I should call them, you know, right from the age of 18 all the way to about 26, this age gap right now amongst Ugandans, they're really going through a lot. You know, if you talk to experts, they will tell you that the biggest number of people that really interact with us are from that age group. And you're wondering, 18 to 26.
And you know, Philo, I have been privileged
Yes.
to carry out a bit of, there's a time, about 3 or 4 years ago, I used to carry out some counseling, voluntary work at the center in Butavika.
Yes.
It was basically in the drug section. You will be amazed. You will be shocked. And I feel for the parents. Some of the parents, when you interact, because these sessions, we have normally been advised that we hold them with the family, not just with the victims. Because sometimes the contributors, the things you're talking about, and by the way, I have learned also over time, and I stopped blaming people. Some people don't know. Yes. So we don't talk about these things like they're obvious.
It's not a
honestly,
everyone will
someone
know.
will find it very okay to let the child watch or do a game that is so violent. And they will not know. They'll be like, what is wrong? It's just a game. But for you to play a game, for some of you have played games, games are addictive. But you must, to play the game, you must get into the character. If any of you has played, like some of us who love soccer, whenever when I'm playing these games, I can get angry. Like, because I am into the character.
I just see you a morning where your team lost you.
This one is
when it comes to when it comes to soccer, I have ways of greeting you, not the ordinary way.
Yes.
When I was being divergent, so you ignore him. But honestly and truly, so when you look at things like games, like okay, basically the things our children are exposed to. There's an audio. I don't know if any of you have heard about the gay and LGBT and what and all, and how now our kids are exposed. There are people recruiting them. Again, what time do you create for these kids to undo what has been done when we are not with them?
Yes.
Some of us leave our children with maids, and I was talking to my family members, my darling. I'm telling her, look here, I think we need to make the fact that we eat together every night. For us to observe, like to have a conversation. And the kids will tell you, you know, Daddy, Auntie Gun said, I'm like, oh, okay. Now you have to keep on undoing, but you can't do that if you are going to rise, because as society, as families, and as responsible people, whoever you know responsible and responsible themselves leaders in the church. I don't, that thing is something
it's a bit
we shall discuss it.
Yes, we'll have
we are not taking responsibility for anything. I think the church has a big role. Religion has a big role in helping. Like some of these things that are happening, they don't want to talk about them. People are silent.
Or they get just onto the surface. They don't get into the details.
I don't know what the fear is. The cultural leaders, whoever is responsible in whichever bracket you fall, let's be actually responsible. Let's have the right discussions. Like, let's talk about the schools. These things, if we have to revise our curriculum that studies start at 9, it's possible to save the generation. You can't have a country where the research shows 80% of a country is mentally disturbed and you think you're going to be productive. Yes. That limits productivity. So for me, I think we have a lot to do. And this is not a topic we should talk about to throw in the back, but consistently come and have discussions about assisting people with mental health.
Robert, briefly, how do you think we can try to bridge some of these gaps at all levels, you know, right at childhood or to adolescence, you know, when it comes to because right now we are looking at the big people and we are ignoring the path that led them here. So briefly, what do you think we can do to bridge that gap?
First, we must change our mindset towards those, because Felix has handled very well the preventative way, that parenting. I don't want to go back to that. But me, I want to focus more on those that we have today. Yes. We've seen ways of preventing. One, mindset change. Many people have not accepted, and I hope you guys agree with me, that mental illness, these people are sick and need help. Or your muraru, you get it. you know, where zavako mwegendereze. Stigmatization. We need to change that mindset. These are sick people, like you have malaria, and okay, some diseases cause mental illness. So we must change that mindset. Second, we still have this tradition of thinking these people were bewitched because they did something wrong. You know? We need to change and let people understand that this has nothing to do, to the best of my understanding, with witchcraft. To the best of my understanding, I stand to be corrected. Though I say someone say, man, it seems so. This is a sickness. But also, finally, Ministry of Health and Government of Uganda has come up with a 5-year strategic plan to reduce mental illness to at least 8%. But what this requires are funds, because this 5-year plan requires every year 1 billion shilling to ensure that in all the 142 districts we have, there is at least a health facility dealing with persons with mental health. Because currently, out of the 142 districts you have, not even 10 have mental health experts. So I think we need to look at the plight of those that are...
Preventative ideas. Like for
That's what I
example,
said.
I'm sorry, Philo, just to add on what Bob was saying. How about drugs? Why are they so available? Anyone in this country, he talked about it.
Yes.
If you want weed, you want opium, any form of drug in Kampala, it is, you understand. So these things of their budget, make these things that fuel mental health very hard to.
Aviation fuel, I don't know where these young boys
Overcoming
get.
mental illnesses in Uganda, especially amongst the children and the youth. Our poll question over there is still running. We want to hear from numbers of mental illnesses in Uganda. Hashtag UBCJMU 0709-602-592. Our WhatsApp number. Please do let us know. Good morning.
Season. Forget the oohs and ahs. Forget every moment that stole the show, because the real show is here on GoTV. It's the new season. It's action-packed, and it's going to be non-stop football. With over 1,000 games from more than 7 leagues and cup competitions, plus a World Cup. Make sure you get the best seat in the house this new football season. Get a GoCoder with 1 month of GoTV value for only 25,000 Uganda shillings and enjoy non-stop football. GoTV Uganda. Love it.
Stay connected on the largest 4G network in Uganda using the Airtel 4G Pocket MiFi at only 75,000 Uganda shillings. It comes with 15 GBs free, valid for a month. You can connect up to 10 of your friends and family at a go. Visit the nearest Airtel shop to get one today or call 0800 333 330 for free. *9# to activate free 15 GBs. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
The press review this morning, Daily Monitor, claims of mentally ill MPs not true, according to the House. And we're looking at Busia Municipality legislator yesterday who claimed that half of the 529 people's representatives in the 11th to accelerate interventions to address the plight of Ugandans battling mental illness. And well, participants taking part in the procession are also being shown out there, especially when they were trying to commemorate the World Mental Health Day at Chambogo University yesterday. Computer law challenged in regional courts, and also Uganda sides with Saudi Arabia in the US OPEC row. Of course, in the matters of diplomacy, the government did say yesterday that it stands by the decision of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries to cut crude oil production by 2 million barrels per day. This is to stabilize global prices. And onto the second page, donors give Uganda 16 billion Ugandan shillings for Ebola fight. Today in history, Obote misses OAU summit in Ghana, and Napoleon retreats from Moscow.
And crossing over onto the New Vision, boarding schools fueling mental illness. Well, that is on page 5, but I also give you government releases full list of beneficiary cities, districts inside. That is from page 6 to page 7. Now they give you a big picture right there. Museveni to meet Francis Macron of DR Congo. Now they give you a picture, President Museveni with the outgoing French ambassador to Uganda, Jules Amand and Yebosu during the farewell visit to State House. Also in the New Vision, teachers wanted over sex video. Now police is hunting for teachers who recorded a controversial video of 2 kindergarten children. Now also in the series, Kampala City hostile to persons with disabilities. That is on page 22 and 23 of the New Vision. And of course, they also give you more stories in there.
And Daily Monitor Sports, URA heavily taxed Busoga United, and showing you how ruthless they were. And the tax collector showed no respect to their horse, whereas Black Powers sacked open. And looking still at the FIFA World Cup, a better pill for Diogo Jota will miss a lengthy spell after sustaining a calf injury in the 1-0 win over Man City, with Jurgen Klopp describing it as very sad news. And women clubs release timely cash injection and bleak to youngsters. Your dreams are valid.
The New Vision Sports. Now, netballers vanish in UK. That is an inside story, but they also give you more. Ogwang hails endanger work. Now, the Minister of State for Sports, Peter Ogwang, has suggested that university institutions not only offer scholarships for active sport, but also work on active sport. Now, that is looking at still the East African University Games in Ndege 2022 that are due December. We can only get better. Oliviera, of course, that is, as he's talking about the CAF Championship as well, and also looking at when they return, especially from Congo, where they have dominated with Ugandan football. Now, much more of the information is right there, talking about the Venoms, as Oliviera gives his insight on that. Now, more in the sports arena, the shoe cranes playing off, and of course, also the money coming in when you look at some of the centers that are running for beefing up sports.
Well, we did ask you over there on our social media platforms, what can we do or what can be done to make sure that we reduce the number of mental illnesses, but also getting through the Daily Nation. Today is the turn of Mukomen, Tuya, Njeru, Malonza and Wafula before MPs, of course, battling ghosts from the past. And here's a full story there on the Hard Pressed, and make sure that you get the details for that. And still looking at more stories in the Daily Nation. For rogue DCI and officers, the human is now the hunted. The hunter is now the hunted. Well, you can get more details of that story in the Daily Nation. So grab yourself copies, Daily Nation, Daily Monitor, and the New Vision, so that you catch up on many, many more stories. What can be done to reduce the increasing numbers of mental illnesses in Uganda? And we do have some feedback coming in from you, Nkwangu Jonah Chaze, saying healthcare management, as simple as that. And also from Eustace Jerome, you're saying solve poverty. Every mental illness begins as a result of that. Well, do keep the feedback coming in, of course, as we're trying to make sure that we cut down on the numbers of mental illnesses that are clearly eating up the Ugandan population. But also getting back to the roads, what is happening on the traffic updates this morning? I must say that it's actually quite crazy when you look at the city center, and this morning I want to focus on the areas around Yusuf Lule Road, around Nile Avenue, around Kampala Road, and also looking at the square. All these areas this morning, I could say that the traffic is actually taking over, and seeing as it is midweek, I could say maybe very many people still do have a number of pending businesses here in town. So make sure that you are a bit careful around there. Taking it from Lugogo as you're headed towards the city center, there is actually a bit of traffic over there as you're trying to find your way around and making sure that you connect to Kampala Road. But continuing in all the way, you should be expecting that road because already the cars have converged in those very specific spots. And also coming in from Access Road, which brings in all the motorists that are coming in from parts of Makindye Division trying to join. Again, Kampala Ginger Highway, the traffic over there is also expected. So yes, it may not be an easy route for you. And continuing in all the way from Yusuf Lule Road, bringing in cars connecting in from John Babiha Road, cars connecting in from Mulago. All these definitely are building traffic again on this very part of the road. But lucky for you, you could use parts of Nile Avenue, you could use some roads there, Katonga, to make sure that you connect to the city center to avoid being held up by the traffic. And again, looking at also cars that are coming in using Bombo Road, well, that also is expected because the traffic over there is expected because we also have many people trying to find their way around from Wandegea and all other surrounding areas. For Buganda Road, which is a one-way road as you're headed back towards Wandegea, it's quite a free one this morning, so you could choose to use that to make sure, again, you're not in that drama on the road. Now, looking at, of course, the main part, which is the square around Kampala, well, I could say that the traffic over here is a bit expected because it is almost in the heart of the city center, so make sure that you make planned journeys. That's it from the traffic updates this morning. I now leave you to Mollen to give you more updates coming in from the weather and climate change. I don't know, what do you have for us this morning, Mollen?
Well, we're looking at some of the endangered mammals, and of course Africa is known for its richness when it comes to most of these wild animals, but they're getting endangered due to climate change, Philomena, and this is where scientists are coming in to worry. We could be looking at much more of those, and you know, also Uganda should be worried because we have our gorillas here. That,
oh yes,
yeah,
we were pretty much gifted with those.
Yes, so we'll be looking at that, and of course about some of the climate news and the weather. I don't know what you expect for today, Philomena.
Well, since it is a cloudy morning, I am thinking maybe it will be a bit humid and later on the rains. I don't know. I am starting to think along those lines, considering the previous patterns we have been witnessing the last couple of days. I am thinking it may rain again, although yesterday it rained slightly earlier. And I felt like it had a point to prove that we cannot be comfortable.
Yes, and of course we could be looking at a little bit of rains coming in for today, but also you have to brace yourselves because it looks like the rainy season is still on, and most areas are now looking at failures in terms of failed rainy seasons across East Africa. So we're only lucky that we still get those rains, if you ask me.
Well, there you go. I will now leave Mollen to do the rest. I am Philomena Mastiko. Have a great Wednesday morning.
Well, we're talking about an African unicorn. That is how it has been tagged, and of course now being among the endangered mammals due to the changing climate, and of course also due to conflict. Now, Congo has been known for having mostly a lot of illegal mining of gold and also the encroachment on the rainforest. Now, this also happens to be homes to most of these mammals, and right now I think the survey that is coming across actually is evident of what has been happening. Now, they also gave a report yesterday that is from the local authorities working with the environmental concern agencies and also across the national protection for some of these mammals, saying that this is one thing that Congo has been known for. And when it comes to wildlife reserve, you look at some of the organizations that have worked there, UNESCO as World Heritage Site, meant to actually be providing a safe haven for some of these endangered mammals. Now, one that has been nicknamed the African unicorn has been put to danger, and of course they are attributing this to industrial activities that are supposed to be banned. That is about 13,000 kilometers out of the reserve, that is the northeastern part of DRC. But again, you also look at some of the organizations that have been working with the mining, especially with civil society groups, that have had also to put up some of the international days to celebrate the endowment in Congo. But again, the Council for Environmental Defense, through legalities and traceability, say that the ongoing distraction was at the odds with the authorities bidding to promote Congo as a major player in global fight to curb climate change, thanks to its majority share on the Congo Basin forest. That has also been one of the areas within East Africa feeding into our rains. So when this is being encroached, but also look at how it affects the weather. Now they're looking at mostly the endangered forests, elephants and chimpanzees that could be, at risk as some of these forests are being encroached on. And also the Environmental Ministry did not immediately respond to a request to comment on this. However, they are also giving out more of the, protective measures that are meant to curb this. But at this rate, it is only getting more and more worse. And of course, now it is attracting attention because it is to do with the fact that we do have climate change, and of course the crisis is only increasing. They need to come out and say something, especially when it comes to how they're strategically going to deal with this. And that is one of the concerns coming in from the environmental groups in Congo, especially with regards to endangered species and endangered mammals. Now, away from that, we're also following up on the Venezuela floods, and it looks like it is now another instance after several days, starting from Sunday into Monday and Tuesday. These have been accumulating across the area and now has triggered another flooding over the area. Now we're looking at more than 600 people who are now affected by these floods, and so far the death toll is 3 people have died from these floods. And of course, we're looking at more of the areas that have been covered. That is near Maracay across Venezuela, where at least by Monday they have confirmed 3 people dead after this heavy downpour created flash flooding. Now, most of these have also triggered mudslides across the area, and that is the southwestern part of the capital, Caracas. And also you look at multiple families that have been affected. Now, around 50 families are also impacted during those flooding and mudslide events across the northeastern part and areas within the southeast of Caracas. Now, heavy rains killed dozens of people and left hundreds homeless in a state of Uruguay just in the recent weeks, where at least 54 people were confirmed dead in the towns of Las Terrigas. That is starting October 8th, where we also had those events after heavy rains provoked mudslides that buried houses and businesses. Now there is another incident just adding to that. And of course, this is attributed to the fact that there has been a lot of frequency when it comes to heavy rains across Venezuela, but also the intensity of these rains coming through. Yes, they do expect rains for this time of the year. The only difference is right now these rains are coming in at a very huge intensity, and of course bringing with them flooding, creating mudslides, which is where you're seeing now we are reporting death and destruction of property. Now over 300 people have also lost their property and homes and businesses due to these mudslides and of course the flooding. Now, climate scientists obviously have attributed this to climate change, looking at the variation, looking at the intensity, looking at the frequency at which this is happening. In just 1 month alone, they have had 3 flooding events and mudslides, and all of those claiming lives, which is why this is out of the ordinary. And of course, they're looking into authorities to come up with a better strategic plan when it comes to especially evacuation, when it comes to relocating people. And this is just a countrywide, a worldwide issue, because whenever we have these kind of instances, extreme weather events, you're looking at how you're going to save people, to minimize loss and damage. And of course, this is what is also taking most of the talks to these climate change conferences, looking at COP27, which is up next in Egypt in November. And most of what is looked at is minimizing loss and damage. Because lately we have been reporting a lot of these extreme weather events and of course being involved with death and destruction of property, and that cannot be good. And of course we're looking at who is fueling into the climate crisis. Now, most companies have also been listed among those that have failed to make pledges when it comes to their climate targets. Now, you can sit here and talk about, you know, climate crisis, looking at the effects it's causing, but who is fueling into this, and why are they failing to adhere to some of the strategies that have been put across, especially when you look at being guided by the Paris Agreement, which is now a very strong accord that we're following in terms of climate action. Now, also research did come out yesterday on some of the private companies that have been lagging behind, especially when it comes to their climate targets with net zero. And of course, looking at 32 out of their 100 biggest private firms having set their targets, but even then, they have not even come through with them. Now, that means that over 80 companies are also still listed in high-emitting sectors, especially with energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing. Now, most of those also do have most of the taxes imposed on them, but also they are covering that in terms of taxes to make sure that, you know, they can justify that they are also contributing to you know, economies as they are paying for what they are disposing of into the atmosphere, but the cost is just too high. Now, just 4 of the private firms with targets actually had a plan to deliver. If you look at out of the 100 that have been screened, only 4 had plans in place, and 32 promising to do that. But now environmentalists and climate scientists are coming up to say that some of these companies should be held accountable, especially when it comes to the fact that they have failed to give in their plan with net zero and of course regulating emissions into the atmosphere, which seem to be the fuel to all this climate crisis, because once we have those greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, they're trapping this heat, we're having more rising temperatures, we're having heat waves, and this is also contributing to some of these extreme events like, you know, flooding, and we're looking at drought crisis, even one we have been dealing with recently across the Greater Horn of East Africa. And this is why we're saying you need to stop, you need to look at more of the environmental concern. Now, among those, you look at companies that have actually been sued over polluting the environment, and one of those is one of the biggest oil companies across the world. That is, you're looking at Shell. Now, recently, they are the latest to be sued again, because it's not the first time that Shell has been taken to court with environmental and climate concerns, and this time they're just looking at more of the clauses that are coming through, and the people suing them are not joking about this, because it has been a talk, especially when it comes to regulating their emissions, and of course how they do their refineries. And of course Netherlands has been the latest to also sue them on the same, and they're looking at how can they go within the environmental concerns, especially set across by the Paris Agreement and also the recent Glasgow Pact that set across, you know, directing most of these big companies. You look at Shell, you got Total and ExxonMobil. Most of these companies were given targets, especially when it comes to regulating emissions. But it seems like they are not following through, which is why climate scientists are taking it even to COP21, I mean, from COP21's Paris Agreement to COP27, to say, look, we need to actually sue these guys for what they're doing, contributing to all the harm they're doing. Now, also, you look at right now, New Jersey is also suing them. It's the latest state to sue oil companies over climate misinformation. Now, New Jersey has gotten its ranks, especially with the statistics about some of the latest oil companies, for their role in delaying climate policy and also increasing climate impacts, risks and costs by the state governments. Now you look at what New Jersey is presenting, their putting in other states. They are looking at Minnesota, District of Columbia, being among the areas that have been affected by the industry's, reluctancy to impose some of these climate policies that were put across. But also they are claiming that this company continues to bring out more of the worst that were abolished even before Paris Agreement. But why are they now bringing in some of those practices? Now they're saying Shell has contributed largely to climate change and making damages inflicted by extreme weather events. And they are quoting a study from 2021 that was looking at most of their contribution towards the climate crisis, and also a journal that was published, that is in journal Nature, also for 2021, and over 55 billion US dollars included in losses due to this company. Well, it looks like this is not good news, and when you look at more investments coming into this, aware of what they can do in terms of harm to the environment than what they are bringing on board. So if you're getting them involved, make sure that they have strategic plans to lower the impacts, and of course that will in turn save you, especially when it comes to contributing to some of these accords that have been put across as guidelines to ensure that we have climate change in check, and of course we can reduce the crisis. We also want to take a look at what is happening across the country for now. We're going to be tapping in from our satellites, that is from EMISAT satellites. Now, it looks like we did start off with a huge rainy system that is across the mid-western part of the country. That system is extending towards areas of northwestern Uganda, that is across West Nile, bringing in rains right as we speak. We're looking at rainy conditions across areas of Masindi. That system is also extending towards Lira, Gulu, parts of Gulu and Arua, Yumbe, looking at some of those rains also for you this morning. Now we will be having more of that system also towards southwestern Uganda. We're looking at areas of Fort Portal also likely to be affected. When you look at those dark that is gray areas, also that is where we do have a little bit of cloudy conditions, but the red colors are indicating the huge system that I'm talking about. We also have one that is starting to develop across Lake Victoria Basin, that is over to the western side. That is likely to bring us rains, especially when it comes to the western part of Lake Victoria. We're looking at Masaka, Rengo, Kalisi, so we could be looking at more of those rains coming through. But also much of Central might also be affected as we're looking at more cloudy systems starting to develop, even adding on to that system that is also likely to be sticking around for the rest of this morning. Now, southwestern Uganda, mostly Mbarara, Kabale, looking at a mix of clouds and sunshine for now, and we could also be looking at rainy conditions later as the morning progresses. Karamoja region starting off with a little bit of rains and mostly cloudy weather across a few places. We could be looking at wet weather conditions also developing later as the day progresses. Otherwise, it is a sunny morning for eastern Uganda and of course most areas across the Mount Elgon Highlands, but we could also be looking at a pickup in wet weather activities. Now, our forecast for this morning coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority is also indicating sunny intervals that is across parts of central northern Uganda. Will also be having temperatures quite warm at 27 degrees. Western side of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe and Rakai, we're looking at isolated showers. Those will be coming in as the morning progresses, starting off with temperatures at 26 degrees. Southwestern Uganda, we're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine. Quite a chilly morning for you out there. It will be starting off at 25 degrees centigrade, but we do expect a little bit of rains to develop later in the evening. Across Mount Elgon Highlands, Mbale, Bududa, Boko and Tironko, we're forecasting isolated showers that will be coming in later as the morning progresses, also starting off with a chilly 25 degrees. Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja, we're forecasting isolated showers that will be across a few areas, and of course most of that system will be developing later in the afternoon. We have temperatures at 25 for this morning. Sorority, Katakwi, Amoria and Kumi were forecasting isolated showers, starting off with quite a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, and some of those rains will also redevelop later in the evening. The eastern parts of Central, where we have Ruero, Wobblen, Ziburudi and Nakaseke, were forecasting rains across several places that will be starting off at 26 degrees centigrade, and also that will be crossing over into the afternoon. Now, the central part of Lake Victoria Basin, Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe and Wakiso, we're forecasting rains that will be across several places. And of course, also starting off quite chilly at 24 degrees centigrade, and also some of those rains will be reappearing later in the afternoon across the Lake Victoria Basin, much of the southern sector, as well as the western sector of the country. Well, that is it in terms of weather for this morning. I hope you're prepared and you're ready so that you're not inconvenienced by some of these wet weather activities. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a blessed day.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Are you feeling stressed? Have you been working too much? Maybe what you need is some R&R.
I just can't get away from technology. Or what else I can do?
OMG, you are so right. IMO, you need some R&R. You should book a room at a B&B. And if anyone texts you,
R&R is short for rest and relaxation. But we often just say R&R. This is an example of a shortened phrase that you will see in writing and hear in everyday conversation. That is not the case for some of the other things Anna said. And that's English in a Minute.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Thank you for being with us up to this time. It is exactly 3 minutes past the top of the hour, and this show begins at 6:30. So that's why I want to appreciate you for moving with us from 6:30 till now, but also reminding you, make it a date with us every weekday from 6:30. We're here, the big team is here to start off your day with humor and relevant information that you need. I'm Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono, in case you've just joined, and this is our Good Morning Uganda agenda, where we have a guest in studios. You're part of the through our various social media platforms, among which is our WhatsApp number that will be coming up on your screen. Please be part of that topic, because we have yet another interesting topic this morning, which is safe labor migration for Ugandans. Well, of late, we've had a number of critics coming in from Ugandans and from some of the workers, to be more specific, in Saudi Arabia, where government of Uganda has a bilateral agreement with that country to externalize labor, more so domestic workers that we commonly call maids. Now, a lot of things have been said. Some have returned home safe, others in caskets, others with missing body parts, others with temporary injuries, others with permanent injuries. Now today we want to discuss and understand how can we ensure that everyone who leaves Uganda to go and work is safe, more so in this category of domestic workers. And joining me on set this morning to discuss this is Ashe Chitandwe, who happens to be the CEO in Njazi Limited, a company that, among other services they do, is labor externalization. Ashe, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Robert. Good morning, viewers.
Well, Ashe, to start with, we have about 180,000 workers in the Middle East. And we know the sector we are discussing today brings in, actually last year brought in about 900 million US dollars. That is a good amount of money. But we also equally know that there is so much government has tried to do to ensure that every girl who leaves Uganda to go and work returns safe. But unfortunately, this has not been the case. So let's first begin by understanding what is the process, or what are the right channels for any girl wanting to leave Uganda to go and work. And I want to be very specific out there, viewers. We are talking about Saudi Arabia, because the only country where Uganda agreed to have domestic workers. Those in Kuwait, Qatar, Jordan, wherever, countries in the Middle East, you're there on your own because there's no bilateral relations. So let's begin by understanding what is the right procedure.
Right. Thank you so much, Robert. First of all, we signed, as Uganda, we signed the labor bilateral agreement in 2018. That is when the government of Uganda and the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia put pen to paper to have Ugandans go and work in this particular country. Secondly, Robert, actually, it was a general labor agreement. It's not just domestic workers. We have drivers, we have coffee shop attendants, and these other different categories.
Just in those categories, you're not getting the complaints as we are getting in domestic workers.
Right, Robert. And the very first thing we need to understand, any Ugandan who wants to go and work abroad, the very first thing they're supposed to do is to, one, if they've approached any company before doing their due diligence, they're supposed to go and check with, one, if you're out of Kampala, check with your resident district commissioner, or RDC, or RCC, the resident city commissioner, to verify whether this company is actually genuine. Secondly, you can also...
so there's a list of all registered licensed companies at their offices.
Yes, and the district internal security officers, or DISOs, they have these lists. Even if you get there, for example, Robert, and the list is not yet there, they know, the mechanisms to find out which companies are registered and they're supposed to be doing this work. So once you have that information, then you know, stage one, this company is called X. You've done your due diligence. You can do your due diligence by, one, if you're out of Kampala, I've said, you can visit your RCC or RDC or DISO to check. Once they verify that, yes, this is a genuine company, then you can contact that company to find out what job openings they have. Then, if they say, for example, yes, we have some work for domestic workers in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, then the very first thing there that is supposed to be done is to have these candidates actually come to the office. They are sensitized about what is available, and in this case, domestic work. Then they go through an interview. You know, because you see, you're supposed to be between 21 to about 37 years of age. And they take you through the whole process of, one, you need to have your national ID. Yeah, because you need to identify who you are. Yes. Secondly, you need to go through a pre-medical, what we call a pre-medical, to find out that is your health in the best of shape. Yes. Okay. Then, after these two have been done, then if you don't have a travel document called a passport, then we start on the process. And these, Robert, remember, it's the companies that are supposed to pay for these. Okay? Then, once you have your details or your bio captured and the process of passport has kicked off, then you're able to go to the next stage. Wait until your passport is out. Once your passport is out, then you go for a 14-day training. All these domestic workers go through a 14-day training through training centers accredited by the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. And once you complete this 14-day training, then you're able to, one, get your contracts. Then that contract, once you receive it from the would-be employer in Saudi Arabia, then we invite your next of kin and you, the candidate, for what we call a debriefing and also a sensitization on the contract. So we go through these contracts that, remember, Robert, it was agreed upon by the government of Uganda and the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So we go through this contract clause by clause in both English and our local languages, so that someone understands, and your next of kin also understand the clauses in this particular contract. So once we've done that, still there is an opportunity of pulling out at that particular stage, Robert.
Okay, after understanding what you're going to do.
Yes.
If you feel you're not able.
Right. So if you're not able, you pull out. You say, okay, sorry, I've understood this, but this is not for me, and it is okay. But once you say it is fine and you want to move on, then you put pen to paper.
I want to ask you before we even go any further regarding this contract.
Right, Robert.
Is it very clear to the nature of work that these girls are going to do? Because we've had many say, when I was coming, I wasn't told I'm going to do this work. I was told I'm going to be a marketeer, I'm going to work in maybe a saloon. Now here I am. They told me I'm going to work in a family. Now I'm on a flat. I have floor 1, floor 2, floor 3. This is about 3 families. I must work in all these homes. Yet I was told I'm going to be a maid like it is in Uganda, helping out people. But now I'm a maid in 3 families. Sometimes they even remove me, transfer me from here, then take me to another city, still work. Then it's too much work.
Right, Robert. What I'm picking there are 2 different scenarios. Scenario number 1 is that anyone who says that they're taking you to do domestic work, and you end up doing something. If someone says that you're leaving this country to be a salesperson in a particular country, for example, and then you end up doing domestic work. For me, what you're telling me is that is a victim of trafficking.
Okay.
Because the process I'm explaining to you is specifically talking about those that are going to do domestic work. And that's why we sensitize them and their next of kin to fully understand that this is the contract. Actually, those contracts have the name of the employer, the address, the telephone number, and all these details. And then the details of the Saudi company, the Ugandan one, the one they are partnering with. Because remember, we get through this work through Saudi companies. Okay? Ugandan companies sign with Saudi companies so that they find this work. So, we are 4. And I was still saying, we append our signatures, 4 parties.
Okay.
The domestic worker, the head of the Ugandan company, the head of the Saudi company, and the employer. of this domestic worker.
That particular home this domestic worker is going to go to.
Yes. Now, I'm also hearing you saying that, they took me to this particular house, and yes, I have 3 floors and stuff like that. No, all that is covered in training, Robert. And you're not supposed to clean the 3 floors in one day, Robert. It's not possible. It is not possible. So they tell you you need to have a timetable or a rota. At this particular time, I'm doing this. Secondly, if you have any complaint, remember, Robert, I told you that we must have Ugandans in these other companies in Saudi to handle any complaints that may arise. And one of the things that normally comes up is that most of our domestic workers, some of them, not all of them, but most of them, they may not know how to timetable themselves. But the other teams that we send to Saudi Arabia, they take them through just to remind them, this is how we do these things and stuff like that. But the training has to cover that, Robert. And you see what we normally do. Remember, the government had given us 7 days of training, but then they realized that it wasn't sufficient. So they extended that to 14 days. So that is supposed to cover that. But also, Robert, you mentioned something about, I go to this other house and stuff like that. In the culture of the Saudis, for example, if we are visiting, I come to your home, Robert, you're my brother, okay? I move with my whole family, including my domestic worker. I can ask my domestic worker to help out, but it doesn't mean that I'm actually asking you to now come and work here. No. And if there is any transfer of this domestic worker, it is supposed to be reported because it's illegal. It has to go through proper channels. Yes, so that is the scenario, Robert. But going back to this other part that I was talking about to do with the contract, once we've all signed, and the next of kin, or the next of kin have also signed, then we go through what we call an approval process by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. So, but before that, we do what we call a visa medical. A visa medical is a medical that you do that allows you to actually get a visa. But this visa medical, for example, once you fail at that stage, of course you can't continue, and that is it, Robert, you can't. Secondly, if you pass the visa medical, then you're able, remember, now you've received the ministry approval or clearance, then your passport and medical details are submitted to the embassy. But in this particular case, all these medical centers we're talking about that carry out these visa medicals, Robert, they were accredited by the Gulf Cooperation Council. These particular medical centers were up particular country. Remember, it sends its health officials. They come here, they vet medical centers here, then they're allowed to do this. So that means the part of medical is also covered as far as international standards are concerned. And that is where in your opening remarks you mentioned that some people come back here with body parts and stuff like that, but I'm going to tackle that. So now, in the end, someone receives their visa and off they go to work. Robert, that is the standard and that is how we do it. But, sorry Robert, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
Well, now you've taken us through the process, the right process to be followed in case you're going to leave Uganda to go and work in Saudi Arabia as a domestic worker, where I'm emphasizing the issue of domestic worker, because these companies take a range of people, from security guards, marketeers, all sorts of work under the law. But you find that you have less complaints compared to what we have in these girls, from these girls that are in houses of these people trying to help out here and there, but also make a living. Now, Ashe, you've talked about how safe it is to go. And of course, I know government of Uganda, plus people in the labor industry, have externalization industry, have done so much to fight trafficking. It could still be there, but lesser impact like it was previously. Now, where do things go wrong? This is where I want to, if many of these girls are living through the right channels, as you've explained, and at every stage you've brought in safeguards. Because if I've left Uganda when there is a contract signed by my employer the other side, Saudi government, Uganda government, and the company that is taking me, we would think that all is going to be smooth. Because when you're party to a contract, you're responsible. You're liable. You can't just say things happen and things happen and things happen. So where is the problem?
Right. Robert, first of all, we're dealing with human beings on both ends. And that is why I was telling you, Robert, that we companies. For example, for me, the company I work with, I have a full manager and 5 supervisors. And their job is simple. Follow up on these complaints. Have them resolved. Is breaching this particular contract. Then, through our channels, i.e., we work with the embassy, we report that this particular employer is breaching, but before we get to that level, the Ugandan company and the Saudi company have to work together to ensure that this particular contract is enforced to the dot. But if there are breaches, we have to also use the legal way. And that is why in our contracts, when we sign with these Saudi companies, one of the things that we do is to engage their legal departments. Then the lawyers can always write to this particular employer or invite them to the office and take them through, remind them of what the law says, of what this contract says. And then once we have all these issues and there is nothing really that is changing, then of course we go to court. But the very first thing we do in the operational part is to withdraw the candidate. If the candidate complains, we ask the employer, please bring the candidate or the migrant worker back to our office for a meeting. And that's a tactic for us we use. So once they come to the office, then you say, okay, according to what to have this candidate back, rather this migrant worker back in your house. So we're taking her back to our accommodation center. As we look into this case, or as the law takes its course. Once the law decides that yes, we're in the wrong or you're in the wrong, then the appropriate action is taken at that particular point.
Actually, how possible? Because theoretically speaking, that could be possible. Because, you know, these, and sometimes there's a word you use, I don't like it. But it is what the term you use. Sponsor. These sponsors. How possible is it for a company to say we are withdrawing? Because I'm reliably informed they invest a lot in ensuring they get these girls. They pay for the air ticket. That is true. I think Visa Medical, they pay for that.
No.
What do they pay? That is medical. There's something.
Actually, Robert, I don't. I want to explain this way. From the way things were done from the beginning, such terms are in the contract. But for us, we know these are employers. And actually, when you look at the particular contract of the domestic worker, it doesn't say sponsor.
Okay.
It says employer.
So where did this sponsor thing come from?
Between me and you, we need to do research on that. But I can also tell you something else, that if there is indeed a problem, believe me, all companies have the capacity to make sure that a remedy is gotten for this particular migrant worker. The only issue comes in when the employer is stubborn and it needs now police and stuff like that. Because now remember, we are not government. But right now, I can tell you, Robert, there is nothing you're going to do to a domestic worker, and it does not come to light.
Well, we are told that much as we have the laws on paper, that one is some of these domestic workers don't even have mediums of communication. Two, in the revised guidelines for you companies in this industry, the Ministry of Labour and Social Development was very clear that you must have employed your staff in Riyadh or some part of Saudi Arabia to be a contact person. But it didn't give qualifications for the person. I've interacted with some, and some sound very bogus, I must say. Some are very articulate and very good. Some companies, their representatives, they are very articulate, very good, they can push things. Other companies just picked on someone, a brother who can speak Arabic. There's a company I was speaking to their representative there, Ratachi, and she was a former domestic worker who did the first contract, second contract. Now she's there. She's the one handling issues. So I'm like, now, how can such a person receive a complaint? She wasn't even just confident enough knowing that I'm a journalist carrying out an investigative story. She lost everything we're talking about. Then, you see, even us, I was once there. So how do we ensure, or what assurance do we have, that really these girls one can report? If someone maybe doesn't have their phone, then this house they were dumped there, how do they communicate? Two, that these representatives, and Jazzy is one of the companies I want to credit, because at least I've spoken to Ashraf, who is very articulate. Sharif, sorry, and Sam, who is very articulate. But there are those that even if you're to forward a complaint, nothing much she can do. So basing on that, what assurance, Ashe, can you give us?
Right. Thank you, Robert, for that very good question. Truth of the matter is that it is work in progress, Robert. And we're not yet perfect. That's the truth. We're not yet perfect. But what we need to do, and I think the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is looking into this. We need to have a standard.
Complaint receivers.
Coordinators, yes. They need to also go through a training. My own thinking is, have those as well trained. Because for me, for example, what I normally do, all these people I send as supervisors or coordinators to Saudi Arabia, they have to first work with me here for 3 months, going through training. And when they're going through this training, I ensure that all the complaints that are reported in Saudi Arabia are also reported here. So through that training of 3 months, by the time they end the 3 months, then they are able, they know where to do, where to start from and what to do. And that is how I send them. But I can't talk for other companies. They all know how they do their stuff. But for me, I believe that we should have a standard, a curriculum and training for these particular people so that they understand.
Then also a junior to that. If I'm read very well. That from the government, you handle it, it is a government official who goes to a police station and the government dealing with. But over the years, a sector that can bring in 900.
That's the Middle East alone.
That's the Middle East alone. What has taken our government? Government can be sorted very fast. That, hey, there is a girl in a home of a general being battered. Rather than saying, we are in Jersey, we are now. We go, why? And
Right.
It is causing pain to these girls that leave home to look for greener pastures.
Right, Robert, I think that's a very, very good question. And truth of the matter is that I'm not going to tell you about what I think government should do. But I'm going to tell you about a model that has worked. Another country's model that has worked, and that's the Philippines. The Philippines have what they employ their people. They have what they call an overseas labor department. And their job is to follow up on any labor complaints in the, of the migrant workers, handle any contract breaches and all these other things. Remember, those labor offices have legal officers, they have. Their job is simple: follow up on all the migrant workers that have been deployed in this particular country. Then, because of exactly that, they are able to, one, coordinate with the labor companies to see how quickly their issues are resolved, but also how quickly do they, one, if the breaches have gone legal, for example, how quickly do you have a very fast legal process concluded, so that they know what to do next. So that, for me, is what we need. Secondly, the technical committees. Remember, in the bilateral agreement, both countries had to have technical committees to keep on reviewing, how are we progressing? Do we have any issues that we need to fix here and there? Yes. If those two technical committees can be more active, because I know that they had their first visit, I think last year or this year, something like that.
I want to tell you, when it comes to labor externalization, I was shocked last year when I saw Honorable Betty Among, Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development, with a delegation go to, that is Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And that is when she said, now these technical committees should start, should be put in place. I was like, Jesus, with all the complaints we are getting, with all this, you're just saying they should be put in place, operationalized?
Well, there you go, Robert. But the good thing, it came from her. So for me, that is where the whole stuff starts from. But also, what is the duty of us companies in pushing the government to do that? That is what you asked. We believe through our association, that's the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies, we've forwarded our suggestions. We've forwarded what we think can be done.
Which I believe is not also doing. Uwera, sorry to say this, but I think
well, Robert,
I can defend what I'm saying.
Right.
I think, remember the times when there's a time where I was very active. It had people who are very passionate, who are pushing for things, but now there's out of dormancy. And they need to up their game. Otherwise, remember one time the government of Saudi Arabia threatened to say, Uganda, the way these stories are coming up, please, we do not want to have more of you. And even government and said, yes, we are giving you time to explain why we should continue having externalization of domestic workers. We either suspend or ban completely. And whether they should up their game.
Robert, I've heard you. But what I can also tell you, Robert, is that, in fact, what you brought out now is something that I wanted to also talk about. You cannot ban labor externalization and think it is the solution. It is not a solution. Because I remember when there was a ban for domestic workers in 2017 and those years back, I mean,
trafficking
increased. The minister was very surprised, the minister then, when she interacted with teams in Oman, and they were told that 30,000 Ugandans are in Oman. Yet we've never had any labor bilateral agreement with Oman. So that shows you, Robert, the best thing is to be like other countries that have embraced this. You see, people and government, they are not very clear on what they want. Do we want to take on this labor externalization full gear? Or, you know, we are happy to see the remittances, but we don't want to show face. So, where do you want to be? I told you, Robert, that the Philippines, last year alone, their remittances were $31 billion. Across, $31 billion. We're at 1.1 billion. And Middle East specifically, $900 million. So, Robert, when do you think we shall get there?
Well,
Nigeria, Robert, Nigeria, $29 billion last year. Do you really think, and you know, I mean, Nigeria is one of, I think if it's not the first, was the second in Africa. You know, the biggest economies, one of the biggest economies in Africa. So, if Nigeria alone is taking 29 billion, is receiving $29 billion, what does that say, Robert? So I think let's embrace this as a team. This is not bad. Clean up all those bad things that are happening. One, Robert, don't forget that even our own people, they're not all innocent, Robert. They're not all innocent. Because remember, this is the only sector that takes all kinds of people. People who have been working on the streets, people who have been doing all these kind of funny things. Yes, but I mean, so so we need to also be very careful when these videos come out and stuff. We need to be extremely careful.
Let me take you to my viewers, and they have a number of questions for you. Practice what you preach. You speak nicely, but why are there more complaints? Still, I believe that is a dirty business. Well, I didn't get your name. Then, hey, good morning to you. I'm Baronde Ali from Rugazi town, and I have my passport. How can I get? If the contract says I work in Abbas's home, how come these make apartments for Abbas's relatives? Or do then? But many Ugandans have suffered from out there. Now we all. Well, I think we've done that explanation. Then what role is International Labour Organization, ILO, playing in this exercise, since it touches on human rights and individual international partners? The comparison between old slave trade and this export of youth is simply puzzling. Now, oh, we do not receive voice notes. Thank you, my dear. Please type. Then the man is explaining well, but 80% of what he is saying don't apply when you get to Saudi Arabia. Whatever is written in the contract is good, but once you get there, you are in their mercies. And when you complain, those officers do not listen. And you start hell on earth. Those go for this final one for now. Good morning, Robert. So I'm going through a company called Hayes. Is it trustworthy or an advice for that? Well, earlier in the program, we told you how to verify the authenticity of the company that you're dealing with. Go to your RRDC. You're building just behind CPS, Kampala Central Police Station, and they'll give you the list. If that company is not there, don't dare do business with it. Ashe.
Right, Robert, I want to begin with the question, rather the comment, I think, of someone who said that this is a dirty business, and okay, Robert, and I don't want to defend, but I want to bring out facts. How many rather sectors that take care of an S2 dropout in this particular country, and how much do they earn? If a graduate earns 500,000 What will senior 2 dropout earn in this particular country? Let us think like that. But this is the only sector that can give a senior 2 dropout earn. Organization of International Migration, UN, we're working together. And actually right now,
critics coming in from Ugandans and from some of the workers, to be more specific, in Saudi Arabia, where government of Uganda has a bilateral agreement with that country to externalize labor, more so domestic workers that we commonly call maids. Now, a lot of things have been said. Some have returned home safe, others in caskets, others with missing body parts, others with temporary injuries, others with permanent injuries. Now today we want to discuss and understand how can we ensure that everyone who leaves Uganda to go and work is safe, more so in this category of domestic workers. And joining me on set this morning to discuss this is Ashe Chitandwe, who happens to be the CEO in Jersey Limited, a company that, among other services they do, is labor externalization. Ashe, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Robert. Good morning, viewers.
Well, Ashe, to start with, we have about 180,000 workers in the Middle East. And we know the sector we are discussing today brings in, actually last year brought in about 900 million US dollars. That is a good amount of money. But we also equally know that there is so much government has tried to do to ensure that every girl who leaves Uganda to go and work returns safe. But unfortunately, this has not been the case. So let's first begin by understanding what is the process, or what are the right channels for any girl wanting to leave Uganda to go and work. And I want to be very specific to our viewers. We are talking about Saudi Arabia because the only country where Uganda agreed to have domestic workers. Those in Kuwait, Qatar, Jordan, wherever, countries in the Middle East, you're there on your own because there's no bilateral relations. So let's begin by understanding what is the right procedure.
Right. Thank you so much, Robert. First of all, we signed, as Uganda, we signed the labor bilateral agreement in 2018. That is when the government of Uganda on the where I disagree with you, because if I've sensitized you on the contract in English and your local language, it is you to sign. If you feel, remember you have your next of kin. Same time, think. If you feel you're not comfortable, it is okay. It is fine up to that level. But the problem is, people, like you've said, people come when they are desperate. And for me, actually, I don't take desperate people. I take people with goals. And that is why they are subjected to a training to understand this is not just for just. No. Do you know that, Robert, we also have people with short-term goals? Someone is looking for just 5 million shillings. Once they have that, they want to come back to Uganda. And they'll put videos or put what, come up with all these funny stories. How quickly do you respond to them? And I think that's where the conversation is, Robert.
Well, we can take a whole day discussing this, and I see a lot of messages coming in on our social media platform. Feedback, because it helps us and gets to better improve.
Learners, I urge you to go through proper channels. Kindly go through proper channels. What has been happening in the media. Should have.
Thank you, our viewers.
Government of the